So to the big story of the day then, and medicinal cannabis. It's over to Kay Burley at Sky News.
Hello, good afternoon. You're watching Sky News at 5 o'clock. Doctors could soon be allowed to prescribe medicinal cannabis in the UK thanks to a review of the law. It comes after a number of high-profile cases, including those of Billy Caldwell and Alfie Dingley, whose severe epilepsy has been helped by the drug. The Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, refused to consider legalising cannabis for recreational use, despite calls to do so from the former Conservative leader, Lord Hague.
As a father, I know there's nothing worse than seeing your child suffer. You would do anything to take away their pain. That is why I have the utmost sympathy for Billy Caldwell, Alfie Dingley and many others like them, and for their parents who have been under unimaginable stress and strain. I know that they are following a gut parental instinct to do whatever is in their power to try and alleviate the suffering of their child. And today, I would like to say to this House that I will do everything in my power to make sure that we have a system that works, so that these children and these parents can get access to the best possible medical treatment. I commend this statement to the House.
Sajid Javid there, the Home Secretary. The decision, of course, was prompted by high-profile cases like the ones mentioned by him, Alfie Dingley, Charlotte Caldwell, and her son, of course, Billy. A lot of high-profile cases of children with severe epilepsy being denied access to cannabis oil, even though the evidence is overwhelming that it controls seizures. But, as Kay Burley said, Sajid Javid said the drug would remain banned for recreational use. Now, Hannah Deacon, the mother of Alfie Dingley, you might remember Hannah was on this programme a few weeks ago, spoke very well. She's delighted that the Home Office said this afternoon that she will be issued a licence to get cannabis oil for Alfie, meaning he can take it here and not have to travel overseas.
When we took him to Holland, he was having severe clusters of seizures every 4 to 10 days. He was going into an ambulance to hospital. We were in A&E. We were in the children's ward maybe for sometimes 2, 3, 4 days. He was having lots of intravenous steroids. He was horrendous after all those seizures and all those drugs. It was just no life. There was never any moment in his life that was happy and nice, and to sort of walk through that on a daily basis as a parent is the most horrendous thing that anyone can ever go through. And, we are going to go from that to him being stable, as seizure-free as possible, hopefully. He had 1 seizure a month when he was in Holland. We have always said that we were never at the full dose of the drug, so hopefully, that seizure will go and he'll be seizure-free. His life has changed immeasurably. He will be going to school. We can organise holidays, and I don't have to worry about where the nearest hospital is. I can go to sleep at night knowing that my son will be there in the morning. It's just changed. It will change all of our lives.
Good for her. Good for her. Now, Sky News' Beth Rigby explains why this has happened so fast. It has happened very quickly. And she also talks about the recreational use of cannabis. Beth Rigby.
And it's quite astonishing how quickly this story has grown and developed. If you think about it, Charlotte Caldwell, she only got the licence from the Home Secretary on Saturday to give cannabis oil to her son Billy. And now we are on Tuesday and the Home Secretary standing in the Commons saying he's going to have an urgent review. We expect the initial findings next week. Government sources saying that there could be a change of direction in this as early as next week. And why are they doing it? Well, simply the writing is on the wall. There's huge public support for it, as our Sky Data poll shows. And politically, any cabinet minister will see that anything happening to one of these children because they can't get access to this medicinal use of cannabis would be just a tragedy for their families. So Sajid Javid has seen that, he's understood it, he's been scrambling actually to get those executive orders through the system for Billy and now for Archie. He raised it in Cabinet on Tuesday, along with Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, told Theresa May it had to be done, and she seems to have agreed with them. and pushed it through. And so we'll expect a movement on this very, very quickly. But in the bigger picture about recreational use of cannabis, that is definitely off the table. You saw in the poll how split the public were. 41% of people supporting it, 40% against it.
Yeah, that was a Sky Data poll. 41% support legalising it for recreational use, 40% against it. But the data poll commissioned by Sky showed that 82% of those surveyed are or want to see the drug legalised for medicinal use. Very interesting. Yet again, she pointed out that there won't be any legalisation for recreational use. Now, Baroness Meacher chairs the UK's all-party parliamentary group for drug policy reform. What about legalising it for recreational use too?
I think the thing is that this country is not ready for that. I think if you have very tight regulations, and certainly users should not be criminalised for using cannabis. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, it's like saying you and I should be criminalised for drinking a glass of wine. Cannabis is actually safer than wine, as it so happens. But, clearly, youngsters should not be criminalised. And Portugal, that have already decriminalised these things, don't have an opioid problem anything like ours. They have a better record of young people getting into jobs and so on and people actually recovering from an addiction problem. So that is, but I really think in this country at the moment we need to focus on the medical use of cannabis.
Well, she says that the country isn't ready for it, legalising it for recreational use, yet she says it is safer than drinking a glass of wine. She says it doesn't lead to harder drug use. Why not legalise it then? Now, I've never taken it. Honestly. I swear, I've never touched it. I've never smoked anything. I never even tried a cigarette. Can't stand it. I've never tried it. Why not legalise it? I don't have an opinion, by the way. Dr. Robert Lefevre is an addiction specialist. He's a GP. He disagrees with the notion that it is relatively safe. He says that it is a gateway drug, leads to harder things. I know many of this programme's listeners will disagree with that completely, but let's hear Dr. Robert Lefevre out anyway.
And there are very sensible uses of medicinal cannabis, which I think the government is moving towards legalisation. But if you move towards legalisation of cannabis in general, then in come the mood-altering properties, and all the addicts say thank you very much. I've treated over 5,000 inpatients for addiction problems of one kind or another, and I know just how damaging it can be. Cannabis is a gateway drug to other drugs. It's not the simple thing it's made out to be.
Do you agree with that? That's something we can discuss in the second hour of the programme, by the way. I'm very interested in your thoughts on this, your opinions on this, about recreational use. Do you use it recreationally? Why do you do that? What are the pros and cons of it? Have you used it? And I want to hear from new people, by the way. I want to hear from first-time callers specifically. Have you used it to treat things, whether it be pain, joint pain, arthritis or other things? I want to hear from you in the second hour. The Skype line to the programme is chat with Richie, but you can phone me, and the phone number is in the UK. It's 0161 818 2018. That's 0161 818 2018. If you're calling from outside the UK, drop the 0 and it's +44 161 818 2018. That's in the second hour. I will put the meme on Twitter where you can see the numbers and the Skype handle clearly illustrated, all right, in case you were frantically looking for a pen there. So I want to talk about that specifically in the second hour. Now, Tory Brexit rebel Dominic Grieve, the former Attorney General, has insisted that all he wants, God love him, is a sensible compromise to prevent a fresh showdown in the Commons over the Parliament's role. Tomorrow, Wednesday, members of Parliament, MPs, will vote on how much of a say they will get after peers yet again defeated the government. This is the House of Lords, the upper chamber. When a bill is agreed upon by the elected MPs, it is sent upstairs where it is basically reviewed and either agreed with and rubber stamped by the House of Lords, or they suggest that the government and Parliament makes amendments. The unelected peers have been trying to make it very, very difficult for the government to walk away from the European Union with no deal. The peers want Parliament to have a say, right? So Dominic Grieve, who's leading the rebels, maintains he's still singing the tune that he wants MPs to sensibly express their views if there was no deal agreed with the European Union. He says he's not trying to micromanage the negotiations and he's not trying to bring down Theresa May. I'm not trying to destroy the government, says Dominic Grieve in conversation with Sky News' Adam Bolton.
I mean, people have suggested I want to collapse the government. I don't want to collapse the government at all. The very reason for having these amendments is to try to ensure that if this situation arises, you can have a debate and a vote which gives an indication of Parliament's views without leading to a motion of no confidence.
But I mean, you would quite welcome this outcome, either a second vote or stopping Brexit, wouldn't you?
I think the chances of getting a second vote appear to me to be very, very remote. There would have to be a major change in public opinion. And how can I stop Brexit when we have triggered Article 50? It must mean Parliament that we are leaving at some point.
Not to delay it or to review it or something in some way.
Well, let's be clear about this. If the need to delay Brexit by a few weeks is going to, in return, going to enable you to take a plane to Rome on the day after we've gone, which at the moment, if we have no deal at all, you won't be able to do on holiday, then that might, I think, be a price worth paying. I mean, people have really got to understand that if we have no deal at all, which is what we're talking about here, we are in the middle of, frankly, an extraordinary crisis, which would mean that our food supplies would dry up, our ability to travel would go. I mean, it's so bad that I hope it can't possibly happen.
But you see,
it's right for Parliament to pay some attention to this.
But the argument that David Davis and people have made is said, look, if this is the option at the end, because we haven't got a deal, we could suspend the Brexit process. Then he says the Europeans are going to say, well, quid's in then. We won't agree anything because they're going to end up staying in.
The Europeans are not fools. They know both the cost to themselves of ending up with no deal. It would be very damaging for some EU countries like Ireland, Belgium and the Netherlands. It would be appalling. So everybody's got an incentive to avoid an absolute no deal Brexit.
So you don't accept you're weakening the government's negotiations?
No, I'm afraid I certainly don't. It's not my intention to weaken the government, and any rational analysis must show that it's not the case.
Dominic Grieve, you won't be able to go on holiday if there's no deal. You won't be able to get food. You won't be able to get wine. You won't be able to leave your house. You won't be able to have a shag. There'll be no lubricant in the country because it's all made in Belgium. The Belgians. Christ. No German beer. And you won't be able to drive a BMW. You can only drive a British-made car. This is deadly serious, despite the flippant attitude I appear to be showing to it. Oh yeah, and your household bills will go up by thousands. That's what they're telling people. Why are they telling people? Because the agenda here is to take that away from the government. The government's ability to walk away with no deal and move to World Trade Organization terms. Basically to take away the government's leverage. So if Grieve and the unelected farters and burpers in the House of Lords get their way, they will enshrine in the withdrawal bill that the government isn't allowed to walk away, and that if it does, Parliament will take over, in which case, of course, there would be no Brexit. More on this with Professor Alan Sked shortly, the man who founded the United Kingdom Independence Party. He'll be joining me in a couple of minutes' time. Right, you're screaming from the rooftops on Twitter to me about cannabis. And about medicinal cannabis and about recreational use. You are telling me overwhelmingly that you don't believe it leads to anything stronger and that you believe that big pharmaceutical companies are terrified at the prospect of you and me and others growing our own to extract our own oil I don't know how easy that is, by the way, but that's what you're saying loud and clear, that there's a great fear among the establishment in legalising the plant. I want to talk about this in the second hour, and I want to talk to you about it. If you don't want to talk to me about it, that's fine and dandy. I'll talk to myself about it. I've never touched it. I don't have any dog in the fight. I think it's ludicrous that you can, on the one hand, say you are free, but yet I can't grow a plant and use it for my own ends. You can't possibly be free if another man whom you've never met before tells you can't grow a plant. I think it's a bit crazy. And I suspect that many of our listeners tweeting tonight are probably right in terms of what they think about it.